we probably didn't talk about as much as it's being talked about Monday is specifically the 49ers decision to punt on 4th and 2 from midfield with 10 minutes left and a 3-point lead in the fourth quarter. As we know, the Rams eventually tied the game and then took the lead and won the game. We talked a lot about the 2nd down and 1 play with Elijah Mitchell losing a yard. We talked a lot about the 3rd down and 2 play with Trent Williams going in motion and the ball getting handed off inside to Kyle Juszczyk, but we did not talk as much. And that moment, understandably, when you look at the still photo, John, of just 4th and 2.5, it's like a long 2, but they are on the Ram side of midfield. That's definitely going to stick as a big moment.
Yeah, I mean, I go back to, you brought this up last night, is to not have Debo to get a touch there on one of those 2 plays, to me, stings. That one's hard to shake. But I say the 4th and 2, I watched Fred Warner's press conference last night. He was pretty shook. And I think part of it was they had been playing excellent defense, right? The second half of the Rams game and then the 2 playoff games. They had been a huge reason why. I mean, that game against the Packers was a historic defensive performance. Part of it was the weather, but they were fucking awesome. What was the 11-16 or 11-18? I mean, their 3rd down last night was a joke. But it wasn't even just the 3rd downs. They were giving up pretty consistently. It never felt the Rams, struggled to move the ball. And I do wonder, part of the analytics of when to go for it and not, I think the argument always is you have to take the game into account, right? If your defense is lights out in a 7-7 game, you can be more conservative. This is a game that, if you were watching the game, the score was 17-14, right, when he punts with 10 minutes left or whatever. It felt like, I would say, despite being up in the lead, they were a little bit on the ropes, the Niners. And it felt like Stafford was kind of moving the ball at will. And I just think if he could have that back, you got to go for it. You have too many good playmakers. Because part of the other thing is always well, go for it. Well, it's you're the Giants. Who's on your offense, right? Or you're a shitty team. Going forward on 4th and 1, it's why, I think you can argue you don't do it at your own 18, but in certain spots, you have Justin Herbert. I got no issue going for it. But there are certain times where it's I don't know if this is the best idea. I think looking back, he's kicking himself like that on just the setup of the play calls and then punting right there.
Again,
they had no timeouts.
Yeah. There were 10 minutes left, though, right? There were 10 minutes left. But I've thought about that sequence, the 2nd down, the 3rd down, more than I've honestly thought about the Tart interception. Although the Tart interception, I mean, all these plays are critical, but it's obvious when you watch why you can't say it's just one thing. Because you can always make that case for the one thing that didn't happen on the other side when Jalen Ramsey dropped a pick, right? But, I mean, when you have the ball, the decisions to me are things that you can really ruminate on, that you really ponder, because decisions are decisions. Decisions are not live ball mistake. Live ball mistakes is just game action, right? Live ball mistakes is all of us on our couch think it should have been so easy for Kowalski Tart to catch it. Right. And even he says I should have caught it, but he didn't, because it's not that easy. Those are live ball situations. Decisions, these are play calls are decisions. Punting or going for it, these are decisions. So the 4th down numbers on the Niners decision, 4th and 2 at the Rams 45. The recommendation, the numbers say go for it. 82% is the win percentage if they succeeded on the 4th down, not 73%. So if they succeeded, 82% would be the win percentage there. Now, their win percentage was 84% late in the 3rd quarter. Okay, your question was the Tart drop.
It was.
Now it's a 56% success rate. I think what really pains me when I see that is if you had said, I wonder, would Kyle have called it any differently the 2 plays that preceded it?
Yes.
If he knew he was going to go for it on 4th? Or does that not? Were those 2 plays easily could have been plays he'd run anyway, right?
I think he had the mindset of just the totality of the last 2.5 games. His defense was lights out. And I think the scoreboard reflected something different than the actual field reflected. And maybe he's just in it. I don't, part of it being the offensive coordinator. Now, he doesn't remember how Andy feels like he's doing it a little bit less, but like Mahomes' first couple years, like when the defense would be on the field, Andy just be over sitting with him. You know, the game
Sean
would be
McVay
going.
did it too.
A
Remember,
lot of guys did it, yeah. And maybe as your quarterback ages, like Andy doesn't waste much time over there with him anymore. I think he just kind of watches the flow of the game. Kyle doesn't, it feels like, do that. But it does. Like, he's looking at his sheet a lot. Like, he's got a lot going on for just, you know, a quote-unquote CEO head coach. I do think that his defense was not playing as well as 14 points in the fourth quarter. If I just tell you that, you'd be like, that's a good defensive performance.
Yeah.
Right? But they were very, very leaky, right? And the players admitted as much. Fred was devastated. He thought they were terrible in terms of
the third
situational
down
defense.
Yeah.
And
I mean, Cooper Kupp's
stops,
numbers on third down were outrageous. He was over 100 yards receiving on third down.
Did the Tart drop happen on the first play post punt? It was.
It was.
Yeah. Because then
that was first and 10.
Because then the next play, the Odell Beckham play happens and they get 50 yards in the blink of an eye, or 45 or whatever. And that was the moment they got it. I think we all agreed they're scoring points. Now, do they get a touchdown or do they get a field goal? But they were scoring points. So now you don't. I mean, I can't say Kyle's like, well, yeah, they're going to hit Odell down the left sideline, and Jimmy Ward's going to hit him in the helmet. They're going to get 45 yards. Like, you don't know that, but you do know. Again, if you were watching it, you and I were sitting next to each other. Ambry Thomas came a long way. I give him a lot of respect. Young player improved. Because why? Young players improve through what? Playing time. But I do think the Niners secondary strong. Their safeties played solid. Their corners were so shitty that just a random average play was like, Ambry, this dude can play. Yeah, relative to fucking Josh Norman, but he still is a major liability against Cooper Kupp or Odell Beckham. Like, he's not covering those guys at this point in time. Coming off also, the other thing with Ambry, he was coming off a deep knee bone bruise. So to think that he was 100%, I know he was better and able to play, unlike the previous week, but I don't think it's fair to think that a corner whose game, every corner beside like Richard Sherman, their games are predicated on speed and their legs, right? So he probably was compromised. They couldn't stay with anybody. I think looking back, that's just one that the situation of the game independently in a vacuum, not a crazy move. The score 17-14. Watching the game felt different than the score. Just the way that like the Rams at any moment could score a touchdown.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're saying that's an argument to go for it on fourth down. You're not going to stop them for 10 more minutes.
It's not going to stop them for 10 more minutes. And if you get it, you're already on their plus side. You do have one of the best running games in the league. Like, they don't have timeouts. Not that they would use them right there, but it's like you get a first down or two. Like, you could bleed 3-4 minutes off in the blink of an eye. And then it's just a math game. Even if your defense is a little leaky, like if you get up 6, they can't kick field goals. They have to score touchdowns, right? Just if they would have got a field goal in that situation to make it 20-14, a field goal doesn't do them as much good. And 2 field goals only ties the game instead of 2 field goals wins the game, right? So like they get in the position, maybe they get the ball back 6 minutes, down 6. They still might score a touchdown, but they have to score a touchdown to beat you. Because one thing the Niners had been, even in that game, is situationally they'd been okay. That's why the score. But there were just some leaky moments on basically every drive.
My biggest regret, if I were Kyle, on that sequence was that Debo didn't touch the ball. And that was my first instinct Sunday night. And now I'm going to say something that I think you could easily shoot this down, but I think we should talk about this part of it. Should they have thrown the ball on second down? Now, they had just had a big run from Elijah Mitchell. I suggested going quarterback sneak just to pick up the first down earlier. Not throw the ball 15 yards down the field, but receiver screen, the types of Debo plays that have just guaranteed yards. And I think the answer to that, if you're going to punt, is no. But if you're going to go for it on fourth down, which, the math says you should, then why not throw it on second down? Now, the devil's advocate to that is you don't know what Jimmy's going to do once you give him the green light to throw. So why take a sack? Why put the ball in harm's way on second down and 1 in a running team? That's reasonable. But the situation of the game was they were not running the football and they were selling out to stop the run.
Yeah, I don't think Kittle. I think I saw a stat. Kittle didn't touch the ball in the fourth quarter either. and he was a guy that Eric Weddle. One thing you got to give Eric Weddle, who was literally like everyone watching this and us too, were sitting on his couch like 4 weeks ago. That guy's kind of born to play in the box and make some tackles, right? I mean, he was kind of flying around in the box and he could make tackles and be physical. You would go, well, if I get Debo, Kittle, Ayuk, anyone matched Juwan Jennings on that player, that should be advantage us. But like you said, do you trust Jimmy in that spot? I think you hit the nail on the head. If they run a quarterback sneak on 2nd and 1, now that never happens.
Never happens.
What the likelihood that it works? Probably like 80%.
Well, I guarantee you the analytics say you just don't do it on 2nd and 1. But again, and I said it at the time you and I were watching the game, like I get not sneaking on 2nd and 1 if you're going to take it, if you're going to do something else there. If you're going to just turn and hand it off, well, then just sneak it.
I would say you're right. The numbers would say do not do it just because you could get more yards.
It's just not value, right?
But there is value at that time with no timeouts of just every first down is worth what? 40, 80, 120 seconds. And 120 seconds in a game where there's not many points and the final score is 20-17. Fuck it, in the fourth quarter, they got no timeouts. Pretty valuable. I do wonder if one of the reasons Kyle didn't throw it was he's thinking, I run it, I pick up the first down. There's 10 minutes, right? I'll take another how much time off from the 45 to either the end zone or a field goal. Say it again.
Well, one of the reasons maybe he doesn't throw it on 2nd down is he's thinking, I'm going to pick up this first down with a run. I'm going to run the ball. We're at the 45. So even if I have to settle for a field goal, I can take another couple of minutes off the clock here minimum, right? Now, I don't really want a field goal because then they can take the rest of the game to score a game-winning touchdown if I give it back to them with like 6 minutes. They can have a 6-minute drive. They'd already had 4. I think they had 5 drives and 9 plays or more and 4 of 10 plays or more. But if you could pick up that first down, score a touchdown, you can effectively make it a 2-score game. You've milked the clock. Maybe they get the ball back with 5 minutes, 5.5 minutes, something like that. Definitely like 6.5.
Well, Guy, I mean, really, you're 2 first downs away from being able to get that bad boy down in the 4 range. And then the pressure that puts on your final drive, right, with no timeouts and Stafford, is just high. Drops, miscommunications. I mean, just one thing I was thinking about today, they clearly did an excellent job on Devontae. Again, the elements were in their favor. It's just harder to throw when it's -5 degrees, obviously.
I know. I heard somebody say that, like, why couldn't they do the same thing they did the week before against the Packers?
They did double team them a lot.
That's when I was driving home listening to the radio from your house, and it was like midnight East Coast. It was like 2 a.m. East Coast radio,
national radio. They did not double team ever Cooper Kupp. Like they just thought they could. Like we have evidence now, these week 18 and now this playoff game, that their strategy with that player has to change. Because could you have gone into that game being like, listen, if Odell gets 9 for 113, we'll tip our hat. But we are not going to let this guy go for 11, 150, and 2 touchdowns. Like that's like letting Curry get 40 on you. I can handle like 22. I could handle 7 catches for 100 and a touchdown. Because that was the difference in the first game, Guy. He had a good game, but he didn't have multiple touchdowns.
Yeah, it's pitching to Bonds.
I thought they gave him they not, I guess, treating him too cavalier, but they just kind of treated him like, just another wide receiver. He just kicked the shit out of you a couple weeks ago. Well,
John, he finished the regular season with 145 catches, okay? In the postseason now, he's had 7 against he had 5 against Arizona, 150, 9 against Tampa, 159, 11 against the Niners, 170. So Cooper Kupp this year has 170 catches. And let's see, how many touchdowns? 16 touchdowns in the regular season.
He had 2 yesterday, so that's 18.
1 the week before, 19. 1 the week before, 20. So Cooper Kupp has 170 catches and 20 touchdowns. You want to do the yards? Why not? 1,947 yards. I need a calculator on this one.
I'll add it up.
All right, 1,947. That's his regular season yardage.
1947.
Yep. He had 61 against the Cardinals.
Okay.
Mail it in. Didn't need him. He had 180 against the Bucks.
No big deal.
He had 142 against the 49ers.
2-3-3-0.
So that's, to recap, 170 catches, 20 touchdowns,
2,330 yards. Can you tweet that out?
Yes. Should I tweet the video out or just tweet out the numbers?
Just tweet out the number. That is just Cooper Kupp's 2021/22 season totals and counting. I mean, what are we talking about here? Like, I know there's an extra game, but having watched him live that week 18, I went, I'm going to talk no shit or even try to push back on, he just benefits from the scheme, just everyone wants to like this guy because he's this white guy and he gives us all dreams. No, he's just a dominant player. He is elite. The one route he ran, I think, on Fred was kind of covering him, and he gave him a little whoop. Not that Fred should be able to cover him, but it was like, God, this guy's running routes like he's Jerry Rice. Catches everything. When he dropped that ball, it was like, that was a gift from the heavens. That guy,
unbelievable.
He's the last guy. If you went, who's the last guy you'd think to drop a ball? I'd say him or Devontae. Because like Keenan Allen this year battled like, it was a story, couldn't catch Herbert's ball. And they're always like, is he throwing it too fast? It's probably a hard ball to catch. But this guy does not. If you told me over under 3.5 drops on the season from Cooper Kupp, I might take the under. Entire season. If you included practice, if you put it at like 7.5, I might call it like a push. I can't imagine if you went, Sean, like, how many balls have hit the ground game and practice starting in OTAs with number 10?
Maybe he's never seen it.
Not many.